So I was just over on David Pakman's YouTube channel, and he had this very interesting video: billionaire and millionaires meet to cut Social Security. Um, what was the title of it? To 1,700 per month, something like that. And I was just like, oh, to cut from 1,700 a month, to cut it to even lower than 1,700 a month. And I think I did a video about that before because I had seen this interview with soon to be President Trump, where all these spending cuts were being discussed, and, Social Security, Medicare, and so on. And I was just like, wow. But so now hearing David talk about this in, like, black and white terms, I mean, the idea of billionaires or millionaires or, you know, congressmen and women, policymakers who are advocating to cut Social Security for those who have the least in the society. They already are at the bottom of the totem pole. They have nothing. They have no money, which is why they need Social Security in the first place. And you have people who have the most in the society, the billionaires, the millionaires, the policymakers, those with the power, are like literally sitting in a room talking about how much can they take from those who already have the least in society. And this somehow is 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 like good policy, because their whole aim is to protect the government from collapsing. So they create policies where their pockets aligned with more and more government money, government contracts, government privileges and benefits, and the people who are already at the bottom. But, they're at the bottom, but they worked their entire lives. I mean, they didn't have the brain of an Elon Musk to fly to Mars and to land rockets, without incident. They were just ordinary people. They worked, they made 30,000 a year, 40,000 a year, whatever it is. They paid their social taxes, FICA, and all this other stuff, whatever it's called, Social Security, and so on. And then you get towards the end of your working life, and we have a billionaire and millionaires and oligarchs and policymakers who all are in the upper echelons of the society from an economic and financial standpoint. And they are discussing taking away the little bit that people like myself have to somehow cure a governmental deficit is really, it really does raise some valid concerns, I think, about economic justice and, what role does the government really have in supporting its citizens? Um, and, fairness and all of those concerns. Social Security is the cornerstone of the U.S. social safety net for millions of Americans, and it's funded by workers who contributed throughout their lives with the expectation of receiving benefits in retirement when they are old and at their most vulnerable. And the idea that $1,700 is too much in 2025 and going forward in America is really astounding. And to have this decision being made by people who $1,700 is what they pay for a steak, if for their average meal, I mean, every day. I mean, it just means nothing to them, right? $1,700 is a joke to them, right? And they are sitting there and they're the ones making decisions. Well, listen, that's what most Americans wanted because, again, Trump never lied about his platform and what he was going to do, or the people who were around him and what their views were. And Americans voted for him in a landslide. So I understand that most Americans are okay with losing their social security or a portion of it. But it just really, you know, it just really, it just rubs me the wrong way. I mean, there's such a stark divide between the ultra wealthy and the working class in America and really around the world. I mean, that's why you sort of had that vigilante guy in New York, Luigi Mangione, who gunned down that CEO. I mean, it was that whole idea of how you have these ultra wealthy people who are squeezing the little people, the working class, because the working class have no way to fight back. I mean, okay, Luigi was not exactly working class. Apparently, he's from a wealthy family himself. But I think that what we're seeing is that it's not just the working class who are going to have to and will fight back against this type of policy. It's going to be some people who are themselves affluent who really feel that the system is unjust and it's unfair, and they're going to take matters into their own hands. Now, I don't I don't condone that. I think that you always have to go through certain channels to find solutions. But this kind of a policy is what creates radicalism, I think, in some people. Some people become radicalized when they hear this kind of story, where you have billionaires and millionaires calling for cuts to programs like Social Security so that they can, increase the wealth inequality for people when people are at their most vulnerable. They're old, they need help, they need care, they don't have money, they're sick, they need insurance, they need to pay the rent, they need to not be homeless. And you're sitting there, all of you rich, I'm not even going to say it, God forbid, right? And you are having all this pleasure from squeezing these types of people. I think throughout history, I would not be surprised if this kind of thing has always occurred and it will always occur, but I don't think it continues um, forever in any generation. There's always some kind of correction that occurs. I do think if you try to take advantage of the disadvantaged, that over a span of time, it self corrects. People who abuse, because to me, this is an abuse of power. It really is. I mean, you who have no idea what it means to be poor, who is so rich that you could feed probably, you know, 33% of people in the country with the wealth that you have, people like Elon Musk, he can actually fund the retirement for 30% of the people on Social Security by himself. I would bet money, right? And he's the one sitting there talking about how to take away the little bit that people have. No, I don't think this kind of system is sustainable. I don't think it will last. I think there will be a correction somewhere. So I'm not even going to, get a conniption. But David Pakman, he called it a kleptocracy and oligarchy. And I think what he implies is that, there's a system that's coming into America or already exists where wealth and power are concentrated in the hands of a few, often at the expense of the many, right? And I think that he's right. I think that what he's saying does align with, the view that billionaires and oligarchs are disproportionately influencing public policy in America, right? And they are lobbying for tax cuts for the very rich, for deregulation that benefits, big, rich corporations and corporate CEOs. And, all these austerity measures that has no impact on the oligarchs and the billionaires and the millionaires, but only harms the majority. But again, the majority in America, that's what they wanted. That's what they voted for. They did with their eyes wide open. They thought it was, um, look, I have nothing against Donald Trump, as I have said, but I didn't want him to be president because there were many reasons. I thought that some people were going to be squeezed and left squealing, And so for me, even though I don't dislike him and I find him interesting as a character, I didn't want him to be president, but I certainly respect the American people and they selected him over Kamala Harris, which I knew they would. No matter what her platform was, she wasn't going to win that, which was why I was so adamant that this is the wrong candidate for the Democrats to put up. But that all being said, I digress. The idea that we have people like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy sitting there with congressmen talking about taking away people's Social Security is really beyond the pale.